Well, welcome to Whispers of History, where the past doesn't shout its size. Here, we unravel the slow and sleepy stories your textbooks never had time for. Stories filled with quiet sandals, starlit roofs, and strange choices about bedding arrangements made by men in togas. As if you find comfort in the rustle of olive branches and the occasional sarcastic nod to antiquity, you're in the right place. So go ahead, like, subscribe, and tell us in the comments where you're listening from, and what time it is over there. Now take a deep breath, let your shoulders drop, and soften your gaze. We're not solving mysteries tonight, we're gently wandering into them. Now let's ease into tonight's journey. You're lying on a gently sloping hillside, not in a dream, but in the olive-dappled countryside just outside Athens around 420 BCE. The crickets hum like tiny lyres, and the scent of crushed thyme clings to your skin like a lazy afternoon nap that forgot to end. There's a flicker of firelight somewhere down the hill, probably someone debating democracy with a mouth full of figs. You'll get there eventually. But for now, you lie back on a mat woven from reeds and second-hand ambition. There is no roof over you, no stone walls, not even a lintel made from sad branches and good intentions. Just the stars, thousands of them, each one burning silently over a city that's too proud to invent indoor plumbing, but wise enough to build amphitheaters with acoustics better than your neighbor's Bluetooth speaker. This was, believe it or not, normal. Ancient Greeks often slept outside. Entire families curled up on rooftops or verandas chasing the breeze. Why? Well, mostly because their houses were designed like stone ovens. Windows were more of a philosophical concept than a structural feature. Add in the heat, the smoke from cooking fires, and the occasional surprise visit from a wandering goat, and suddenly the stars start to look pretty inviting. It wasn't just the peasants or poets either. Even the respectable upper-middle philosophers, you know, the kind who name-drop Plato in casual conversation, embraced the open-air nap. Some of them claimed sleeping under the sky kept the mind clear. Others said it helped them listen better to the gods. Historians still debate whether this was true or just an excuse to avoid cleaning the bedroom. And here's something weird. The ancient Greeks believed that certain stars could influence your dreams. If you slept facing Arcturus, you might receive a vision from Hermes. Facing Orion, better hope you didn't eat too many lentils. One poet warned that dreams sent by the constellation Scorpius caused emotional confusion and questionable romantic decisions. A little too relatable, really. You roll slightly on your mat. The straw crackles softly under your weight. A dog in the distance barks once, like punctuation, then goes quiet again. Around you, the night air breathes in and out with the slow confidence of a city that thinks it invented wisdom, and arguably did. You probably won't make it through this day. But that's all right. You're here, you're under the stars. And we're just getting started. Morning sneaks in quietly, as if it, too, is afraid of waking anyone. The sky shifts from violet to the soft gray of old marble, and somewhere a rooster misjudges his audience and starts bragging too early. You hear a clay pot being set down on stone, a dull, warm thud. Someone's already heating barley water, possibly regretting last night's fermented grape juice. You sit up slowly. The mat leaves lines on your cheek like a love note from the dirt. A chill lingers in the air, nothing dramatic, just enough to remind you your tunic was never meant to be pajamas. You stretch your arms and look around. The Agora, Athens' famed marketplace, is stirring to life. Merchants are dragging out baskets of olives and salted fish. One woman is angrily rearranging a pyramid of cabbages. A boy jogs past, barefoot, trailing a goat that looks mildly offended by the exercise. You follow a dirt path flanked by low stone walls, chipped and sun-bleached. There are bits of history tucked everywhere here, fragments of old gods, bits of broken amphorae, and a rumor that Pythagoras once sneezed nearby. It's the kind of place where philosophy and chores overlap. You can discuss the nature of justice while sweeping your stoop. You pass a temple, not one of the big ones, just a humble shrine nestled under a fig tree. A stone relief of Hypnos, the god of sleep, lounges above the door like he has nothing better to do. People used to leave poppy seeds and lavender sprigs here, hopping for peaceful dreams. One local tale says if you sleep under a fig tree on the summer solstice, Hypnos might whisper the answer to a problem you didn't know you had. Or at least, that's what the priest told everyone before asking for a donation. And speaking of sleeping oddities, did you know the Greeks had a very firm belief in sleeping direction? Heads to the west, feet to the east. Why? Because that's how the sun travels, and apparently it matters whether your brain catches the sunrise first. Some claimed sleeping against the sun's course gave you nightmares. One scholar even blamed reverse sleeping for his cousin's failed romantic poetry career. You make it to a shaded portico. A few philosophers are already mid-argument, gesturing with bread and mumbling about virtue. You eavesdrop without guilt, it's expected. This is Athens, after all. Here, even napping under a tree can lead to an accidental Socratic method. A breeze slides through, carrying the smell of fresh thyme and baked stone. Your eyes close for a moment, not out of exhaustion, but because this moment is soft and undemanding. The clamor of history pauses. Time becomes a polite suggestion. You rest your head against the cool stone pillar, and for a flicker of a second, it feels like the earth is breathing with you. Just like it did last night. And probably will tomorrow. Now just breathe. We'll keep walking soon. But not too fast. The pillar behind your head is cool, and you let yourself lean into it for a moment longer than necessary. Just long enough to seem meditative, not lazy, which is important, because a man in a faded Hammadian is watching you from across the courtyard. He's either about to sell you something or quote Aristotle. Or worst case, both. Instead, you stand and stretch again. No one really minds how long you loiter in ancient Athens. The concept of time here is delightfully fluid, especially when half the population is either philosophizing or napping. You step around a sleeping dog who has decided, quite confidently, that this spot near the temple steps belongs to him now. Down the next road is a public bathhouse, not for bathing, ironically, but for gossip. The actual bathing happens later. First comes lounging, then arguing, then the awkward realization that no one brought soap. The building is low and square, its roof tiled in sun-bleached, and its walls humming softly with the muffled echoes of people trying to sound wise. You duck into the shade of the entrance and are met with the scent of olive oil, warmed stone, and the faintest trace of old sandal leather. Someone is laughing loudly. A few others are pretending not to listen while clearly listening. The layout is surprisingly cozy, pillars spaced just wide enough to lean on without falling over, benches arranged with passive-aggressive symmetry, and mosaics on the floor that depict dolphins for reasons nobody really remembers. The scholars still debate whether dolphins were a metaphor for clean living, or just a design trend that got out of hand. One older man, his beard shaped like he's waiting for someone to paint him, nods at you as you pass. He's explaining to a much younger listener that sleeping outside keeps your blood cooler, your thoughts clearer, and your bladder more disciplined. You resist the urge to ask for a citation. The ancient Greeks had curious ideas about sleep hygiene. One scroll suggested rubbing your temples with chamomile and reciting a hymn to Apollo for lucid dreams. Another advised sleeping with a small carved figurine under your head to absorb nightmares, though it's unclear if that worked or just made people develop neck pain and anxiety about cursed statuettes. As you wander past the pool room, you notice two men arguing about the correct time to nap. One insists midday is ideal for cosmic alignment. The other prefers the late afternoon just before dinner and light introspection. You smile. Somewhere in this sleepy chaos, civilization is inventing itself. A child darts by, chased by another child holding a fig like a weapon. Their sandals slap the marble floor, echoing like applause. You follow them out into a courtyard fringed with cypress trees. In the center stands a stone fountain, its water trickling in a rhythm slower than your breath. A heron perches nearby, looking scandalized by the presence of so many humans. You sit again, this time on a bench warmed by the sun and shaped by years of other elbows and spines. You close your eyes, not to sleep exactly but to drift, to float slightly above time. And somewhere deep in that soft pause, a thought arrives. Now this city never really sleeps indoors. Not fully. Not by a choice. You wake not fully, not sharply, but the way you surface from a bath. The sound of footsteps crunching gravel pulls you gently upward. A woman in a dark blue chiton walks past you, balancing a basket of herbs on her hip like it's an afterthought. She's humming. The tune is old and circular, probably meant to keep time while walking. It works. Your back reminds you it's been resting against a bench, not a mattress, and you rise slowly, joints creaking like a lyre that's been left in the sun. Another breeze drifts by, and with it, the spicy sweet scent of rosemary and burnt onion. Someone is cooking lunch nearby, probably over a small fire, possibly with a recipe that has never been written down but still involves 7 strong opinions. You walk through a narrow alley framed by walls. Laundry hangs above your head, tunics, cloaks, the occasional pair of slightly embarrassing undergarments fluttering in the breeze like shy confessions. A cat blinks at you from a windowsill and yawns so dramatically you briefly feel judged. Ahead lies the stoa, a long colonnaded structure used for everything from shopping to impromptu lectures on ethics. Today, a man with ink-stained fingers is offering handwritten poems for a single drachma. He promises they're divinely inspired and somewhat correct in spelling. You don't buy one, but you pretend to consider it. It's polite. Nearby, a group of women kneel at a loom nearly the size of a doorway. They're weaving wool into thick striped blankets, used mostly as bedding. You pause. One of them notices your interest and offers a smile. She explains that these are for families who sleep on rooftops. The blankets are heavy enough to keep the wind off, but light enough to fold and carry when it rains. It rains, you ask. Only when someone forgets to pray to the right sky god, she says with a shrug. They laugh, you laugh too, quietly of course. Here's your historical fact of the day. Greek homes, particularly in city centers like Athens, often had flat roofs built with sleeping in mind. In summer, it was almost standard to head up top after dinner, lay down your blanket, and drift off to the sound of distant lyres and half-hearted arguments about taxes. Wealthier homes even had small staircases leading directly from the courtyard to the roof, as if the house itself encouraged upward escape. But here's the strange bit: it wasn't just practical. The Greeks had a poetic attachment to stars. Some believed that sleeping beneath the heavens allowed your soul to breathe freely, a kind of nightly spiritual exhale. In dreams, they thought the soul floated upward, mingling with celestial beings and returning wiser, if not better rested. And of course, not everyone agreed. Historians still debate whether these rooftop rituals were widely practiced or simply idealized by poets with no architectural training. But the stories persist, and that means something. You keep walking. The sunlight grows thicker, like golden honey pouring sideways. You turn down another road, one you could sworn didn't exist before. But that's Athens. Streets change with the mood, or maybe with your pace. A vendor calls out to no one in particular about honey cakes and fresh grapes. His table is half empty already. You nod politely and continue on. Not because you're uninterested, but because you're too relaxed to make decisions right now. You come upon a shady olive grove at the edge of the city. A few people are lying under the trees, eyes closed, feet bare, completely unbothered by the ants, the grass, or life in general. You're tempted to join them. And instead, you find a smooth patch of ground, lower yourself onto your back, and stare up through the silver-green leaves. The sun flickers through like a dream that hasn't chosen its ending yet. Above the trees, the sky stretches wide and unashamed. No ceiling, no timetables, just endless light. And in this soft, warm hush, your eyes begin to drift again. You're not tired exactly. You're just letting go. Of the time, a lot of roads, of needing to know where this is all going. We'll keep walking, but not yet. Not while the sky is still this blue. You stay like that for a while, supine beneath the olives, listening to the small, accidental symphony of ancient life. Someone somewhere is chopping vegetables without urgency. A child giggles, then immediately shushes himself like he's committed a crime. The leaves above you shift in soft clicks, like the sound of old scrolls being gently opened by a wind. The breeze carries the scent of sheep, faintly sour but strangely comforting. They're grazing somewhere nearby, chewing their cud with the patience of philosophers and the self-importance of theater critics. A shepherd hums an off-key melody. You can't tell if it's meant to soothe the animals or himself, but it works either way. It's early afternoon now, and Athens has entered its version of a collective exhale. This is the sacred hour, the nap window, the break between morning errands and evening conversations. Officially, the Greeks didn't have a siesta culture like the Romans would later claim, but let's just say nobody in a hurry right now. You watch as a boy tugs at a low-hanging branch trying to shake loose an olive. It plops to the dirt with all the gravity of a life lesson, and he scoops it up like a treasure. Somewhere deep in the grooves of this city, a clay oven crackles to life. Flatbread is baking. You smell it, warm, yeasty, with that soft, toasty edge like a well-kept secret. So eventually, you rise again, not because you have to, but because your back is gently threatening to file a complaint. You wander lazily along a dirt path toward the edge of the city. This is where the houses get fewer and the fields get wider, where the lines between city and countryside blur like watercolor. You pass a roadside altar, barely more than a stump and a few scattered flower petals. It's dedicated to one of the lesser-known goddesses of sleep and hallucination. The Greeks had many names for dreams, each with its own hierarchy. One kind of dream came from the gods, another from ghosts, another from indigestion, and occasionally from falling asleep in public with a guilty conscience. Here's something obscure. Some Athenian mothers used to leave poppy seeds beneath their children's pillows wrapped in cloth. Not to eat, though poppies did have known sedative properties, but as a symbolic offering to the realm of sleep. A peace treaty with the unconscious mind. According to one old tale, a boy who refused the poppy ritual grew up to become a very anxious tax collector. This might not be historical fact, but it certainly feels emotionally accurate. As you continue your slow meander, you come across a farmer napping under a fig tree, his mouth slightly open in protest against responsibility. His oxen wait patiently, chewing the same bite of grass over and over, as if rehearsing for a play about monotony. You sit on a rock nearby and exhale again, deeper this time. While the sun begins to slant, and the shadows start to lengthen like lazy cats. Evening in ancient Greece doesn't announce itself. It leaks in quiet and gold. The birds settle into their final conversations of the day. The olive trees hold still as if listening. And the air becomes just cool enough to remind you that time is always passing, even when it feels like it is. You find yourself walking a path you didn't plan on again. The streets here wind like they were laid down by distracted poets, never in straight lines, always ending in unexpected plazas or dead ends with particularly smug goats. You pass a man holding a lyre, strumming not a song but a series of thoughts. He nods at you with the casual dignity of someone who believes music can fix most things. He might be right. You reach a small square, paved in uneven stones and encircled by homes with cracked walls, each a slightly different shade of sun-faded white. Children chase each other in wide, uneven loops, shrieking like philosophers who just lost an argument. An old woman stirs a pot over a fire, and the smell, lentils, garlic, a bit too much vinegar, makes your stomach whimper like a tired dog. You sit beside a low fountain, the kind that was built not out of grandeur but necessity. It trickles without ambition, content to be a background sound. A pair of sandals lies forgotten nearby, one upside down, one still clutching a clump of earth. You wonder briefly about the feet that wore them, where they are now, whether they ever argued with Plato, whether they slept under the stars. Now here's your historical curiosity of the hour. In some parts of Greece, particularly in the islands, it was considered lucky to sleep with your face turned toward the sea. The belief was that the ocean carried dreams better than the land, saltier maybe, but also truer. Others warned against this, claiming the sea could pull your soul out while you slept, especially during high tide. Historians still debate whether this was metaphor, superstition, or just a particularly vivid excuse to stay inland. An elderly man, skin like weathered bark and hair like silver ash, settles down next to you on the bench. He says nothing for a long while, then begins talking not to you exactly but near you. He speaks of his grandfather, who claimed to have heard the stars whisper once during a night spent sleeping on the roof of the family home. He doesn't say what they whispered. Perhaps because he doesn't know, or perhaps because it's only ever said once. You nod solemnly, which is the correct response when someone tells you about star whispers. He offers you a fig from a small pouch. It's dry, sweet, and more seed than flesh, but somehow perfect in this moment. A reminder that some things were never meant to be improved. The shadows stretch further now, blending into the corners of streets, slipping under doorways. Lamps begin to flicker to life, small clay bowls with wicks soaked in olive oil. The light is soft, trembling. No one's in a rush. Darkness is not an enemy here, just a different kind of silence. A woman with a wide basket calls to her children. One obeys, one negotiates, one runs in the opposite direction, a familiar rhythm. You rise again, feet aching in the pleasant way that means you've walked far enough without realizing it. The sky above you is cooling into lavender. And the first star appears. Just one. But it's enough. You begin to climb the slope back toward where you started, your humble mat, your open sky, your inherited patch of stars. The city around you exhales again. Another day dissolving. Another night unrolling itself, slow and quiet, over rooftops and regrets. There's no rush, the story's still unfolding. And so are you. The stars are out now, full and unashamed, scattered across the sky like someone spilled silver dust over blue velvet. You climb slowly, your sandals pressing softly into the earth. The road back to the hillside where you slept the night before seems both familiar and different, as if the city has shifted just slightly while you weren't looking. Along the way, you pass a stone step with a dent worn so smooth by generations of feet that it could double as a seat if you're particularly tired or philosophically inclined. You sit briefly. No one asks why. In Athens, sitting suddenly is considered a valid reaction to both deep thought and mild indigestion. Somewhere down the slope, a lyre begins to play again. A slow melody, almost hesitant. You don't recognize the tune and you suspect no one else does either, not even the musician. It's the kind of song that's made up as it goes. The kind that ends only when the night does. A group of young men walks by, debating something passionately. You catch only a few words: virtue, courage, whose sandals smell worse, and then they're gone. One of them stumbles slightly, rights himself, and keeps speaking without missing a beat. That's the thing about this city, even the philosophers trip sometimes. And even the clumsiest of them can still deliver a compelling argument while doing it. You rise again and pass a woman placing small clay figures on her rooftop. Tiny horses, birds, and one that might be a god or might just be a particularly confident man. She catches your glance and shrugs, smiling. They keep the wind from gossiping, she says. You nod. Of course they do. Here's your historical gem of the hour. Some Athenians believed rooftops were liminal spaces, neither fully earth nor sky but somewhere between. A place where the soul could rise and fall more freely in sleep. This belief shaped rituals too. People left offerings not just at altars but on rooftops, bits of food, herbs, broken jewelry. One preserved record even mentions a woman offering her husband's sandal in exchange for quieter dreams. He probably never noticed, or pretended not to. You reach the crest of the hill at last. Your mat is still there, dutiful and quiet, like a dog that's been waiting. You sit down slowly, back against the same familiar rock, the same sharp edge that dug into your ribs last night and now feels oddly reassuring. Above you, the sky opens wide. Wider than thoughts. Wider than times. You lie back again. The stars greet you like old friends who never ask why you left. And the wind moves across your face, not cold, just steady, just present, like it has nowhere else to be. In the distance, a man begins reciting Homer aloud to no one, or maybe to everyone. His voice drifts upward in rhythmic pulses. You catch only a line or two, something about a ship, a storm, the gods disagreeing again. They always do. You close your eyes and for a while there is nothing but breath, yours, the earth, the cities. All slow, all soft, all syncopated with sleep. The night deepens, the stars grow bolder. You lie still on your mat, listening to the world settle itself. Athens, even in its noise, knows how to sleep, or at least how to pretend convincingly. Somewhere nearby, a couple whispers under their breath, something about a neighbor's goat or perhaps their own. The goat, for its part, lets out a sigh that feels unreasonably judgmental. You smile in the dark. Your blanket, rough but loyal, hugs your shoulders. The fabric smells faintly of olive oil and thyme, and a little like that bakery you passed earlier. You could almost believe it's warm from fire, though it's really just the sun's memory caught in the weave. You turn your head slightly and see an old man sleeping upright against a stone wall. His beard rises and falls with each snore as if composing a silent opera. By his side rests a small satchel tied closed with string. No one dares touch it. It could contain treasure, or onions, or both. As the moon finally crests the sky, pale, watchful, never quite on time. It washes the city in silver, turns rooftops into lily pads and alleyways into rivers of sleep. Even the temples glow softly now, less like monuments and more like for the gods. Now, tonight's obscure tidbit: the Greeks had a word for dream interpretation, and they took it seriously. There were even professional dream interpreters, usually older men with wild eyebrows and questionable credentials. You could pay them to sit beside your sleeping mat and listen as you mumbled through your dreams, then nod thoughtfully and declare, "Ah yes, the fish means your mother-in-law will visit soon." Historians still debate whether this was spiritual guidance or just an ancient form of psychological freelancing. There's a tiny creature crawling near your sandal. A beetle, slow and metallic looking, like it has places to be but no real plan for getting there. You watch it, fascinated. Somehow in the stillness of this night, even a beetle feels important. As above you, the constellations continue their age-old performance. There's Orion forever flexing. There's Cassiopeia lounging dramatically. And there, almost hidden, is Delphinus, the dolphin. A constellation so small it's easy to miss unless you're looking for it. The Greeks thought it was a sign of good luck to dream beneath Delphinus, or maybe just that it would rain wine. Sources disagree. As a chill settles in quietly, politely, you pull the blanket up to your chin, shifting slightly. The mat crinkles beneath you. The rock digs into your shoulder again. It's exactly where it was, which is oddly comforting. You think about how many nights have looked like this. How many other backs have rested on this same hill? How many generations have stared up at this same sky, wondering about stars and sleep and sandals? Your eyes begin to blur. Not from exhaustion exactly, but from the softness of it all. The gentleness of being held, not by hands, but by air and silence and time. A dog howls once, not mournfully, just to remind everyone he exists. A baby whimpers and is hushed. Somewhere someone drops a cup, no one minds. Now you are not alone here, but you are safe, and that makes all the difference. Though the stars blink above you, slow and unhurried. And the hill beneath you does not move. Not now. No, not for centuries. As at some point in the night you slip between wakefulness and something softer. Not quite sleep, but a state where thoughts float without gravity, where time begins to forget its job. You don't dream, not exactly. Or if you do, the dreams come disguised like shadows that refuse to introduce themselves. You remember a fig tree bending toward the moon, a conversation with a crow, a small clay cup filled with stars instead of wine. It all makes sense, but only in the way dreams do, briefly and then not at all. The city around you breathes on. The breeze rises, then sinks gentle as a sleeping child's chest. A donkey brays in the far distance, startling even itself. Somewhere a man laughs in his sleep. Not a chuckle, but a full, delighted burst, as if the gods finally made a good joke and shared it only with him. You roll slightly on your mat, the straw whispering secrets to the dirt. Your shoulder settles into a softer groove now, shaped either by centuries of sleepers or just your own persistence. The rock you once cursed has become part of your anatomy. You name it quietly in your head, the shoulder rock, he's earned it. The moon has climbed higher, now casting long silver rectangles across the courtyard walls below. You can see part of the agora from here, just enough to spot the occasional movement of a torchlight, bobbing along as if the flame is out for a stroll. A city never really sleeps, not even when it pretends to. Here's a historical fact most textbooks forget to mention. Ancient Greek homes were not always enclosed by four walls. Some had partial roofs, open-air rooms, and courtyards designed for moonlight more than privacy. The distinction between indoors and outdoors blurred considerably, especially at night. A bedroom might be a shaded alcove. A dining area might be a spot on the roof with a good view and a low risk of pigeon interference. Now for tonight's obscure tidbit. In certain parts of ancient Greece, it was common to place garlic under the pillow not for flavor but for protection. Protection from what, you ask? Dreams mostly, or perhaps the dead, or perhaps in-laws. The reasons varied and frankly weren't always explained. One fragment of a domestic manual even advises, "Let no man lie with dreams upon his heart if garlic may be found." Interpret that as you will. Back on your hillside, a cloud glides across the stars, veiling them for a moment. The darkness grows deeper, like a pause in a sentence no one finished. Then the wind shifts again and the stars return, patient, soft-spoken, unbothered by being momentarily forgotten. You close your eyes not because you need to, but because it feels good. Because the world in this moment is holding still just long enough for you to rest. Not forever, just long enough. And the earth continues its slow rotation beneath you, steady as ever, as if to say, "Oh, sleep if you must. I've got this part." Morning doesn't arrive, it stretches, it yawns, it considers its options. Then, reluctantly, it begins. You feel it first as a change in temperature, cool shifting toward warm. Then the light begins its slow spill across your eyelids. Not bright, not insistent, just there, a suggestion of day. You open your eyes to the color of honeyed stone and distant smoke. Somewhere someone has lit the first cooking fire. A rooster begins its declaration, again too early, again unheeded. The city responds not with alarm, but with a kind of soft resignation. Another day, then, fine. You sit up slowly. Your spine stretches like an old harp string being tuned. Your tunic clings in places it shouldn't. A leaf has adhered to your shoulder with the quiet confidence of a decorative brooch. Down the hill you hear the soft clatter of amphorae being set out for sale. A young girl chases a chicken past your feet, no explanation offered or needed, it's just how the day begins here. A bit chaotic. A bit poetic, entirely unfazed. You shake out your mat, fold it with a flair that suggests you've done this many times, and begin your descent into the waking Athens. The path is rutted from decades of bare feet and indifferent donkeys. A few early risers nod as you pass. One man offers you half a fig, you take it, not because you're hungry, but because saying no feels ungrateful. Also, it's a good fig. As you walk, you catch sight of something strange. A large, flat stone with dozens of tiny holes drilled into it, seemingly random, like a board game abandoned by the gods. You've seen these before. They're called ancient Greek water clocks, used not to tell the time of day but to measure debates. When the water ran out, so did the speaker's time. A beautiful idea, really, arguments regulated by water. If only modern social media adopted the same principle. And here's your bit of scholarly debate for this section. Some archaeologists claim that the was also used to measure sleeping rituals in temples. How long a person could lie in sacred silence before the next petition to the gods. Others argue there's no evidence for this whatsoever, and that such ideas are modern romanticism dressed up as scholarship. But then again, so is half of what we do here. You wander into the edge of the agora and take a seat on a low wall. The world is moving now, merchants shouting about cheeses, someone sweeping with the enthusiasm of a man trying to erase yesterday. A chorus of voices rising and falling like a tide. And yet you feel none of the urgency. You've already slept. You've already dreamed. You've already heard the stars whisper their tiny, unsellable truths. You spot a familiar dog, possibly the same one from last night, curled in the sun near a fig vendor. He opens one eye as you pass and, after confirming that you're neither edible nor interesting, returns to sleep. Wisdom in its form. You keep walking past the columns, past the statues, past a boy trying to convince his mother that the broken amphora he's carrying was already broken when he found it. She doesn't believe him. He knows she doesn't believe him, but they play the roles anyway. Eventually, you find yourself standing once again near the steps of the Acropolis. Not climbing it, no one climbs the Acropolis before breakfast, but just near enough to see it catch the morning sun. Golden, crumbling, serene, like the world's most confident napper. You sit on a nearby stone, take a deep breath, and feel something rare. Stillness. Not in the world, but in yourself. It's the kind of stillness that doesn't ask anything of you. The kind that says, yes, the market is loud. Yes, the philosophers are arguing. Yes, someone about to drop a basket of lemons. But you're fine. You're full of sleep and stars and old wind. And for now, that's more than enough. The sunlight creeps along the marble like spilled milk, slow, warm, and unconcerned with your schedule. You remain seated by the steps of the Acropolis, the city gently waking around you. Behind you, someone is rehearsing a speech. You hear the words justice, honor, and fig tariffs. which suggests either a political candidate or a particularly dramatic grocer. Your hands trace the worn edges of the stone beneath you. Thousands of people must sat here before, some resting, some arguing, some probably hiding from relatives. You imagine sandals slapping up these steps 2,000 years ago, the clink of bronze coins in a linen pouch, the creak of leather belts holding up togas on very confident men. You tilt your head back. The Parthenon looms above, regal and missing pieces. Its columns are sun-stained and somehow still arrogant. The goddess Athena once watched from up there, her statue over 30 feet tall, coated in gold and ivory. She's long gone, of course, moved out, possibly taking a long vacation somewhere less windy. But even in her absence, the energy lingers. A kind of sleepy reverence, as though the stones themselves still remember being. Or maybe they're just proud of surviving this long with only mild crumbling. You walk a little just to feel your legs again. The path is uneven, all ridges and storylines. A small bird lands near your feet, pecks the ground once, then flutters off like it forgot what it came for. You relate. Here's something odd. The Greeks had different sleeping positions for different dreams. One ancient text suggests that sleeping on your back invites visions of the gods, while sleeping on your left side brings more prophetic dreams. Lying on your stomach, however, was generally frowned upon, not for spiritual reasons, just because it made snoring worse. That's not a joke, that was actually written down. You find a shaded wall and sit again. The heat is coming, you can feel it, not aggressive yet, just building its case. A pair of boys walk past, one carrying a lyre with all the enthusiasm of someone forced to take music lessons. They're whispering about a teacher named who smells like pickled fish. You make a mental note to avoid. And now your one scholarly uncertainty. Some historians argue that the average Athenian slept in 2 shifts, an initial sleep from dusk until midnight, followed by a waking hour or 2 for thinking, chatting, or stargazing, then a second stretch of sleep until dawn. Others say this theory was exaggerated by later writers nostalgic for simpler times that probably weren't simple at all. The truth, lost somewhere between a cracked vase and an unpublished scroll. Your eyes grow heavy again, not from exhaustion but from the gentleness of the moment. You lean your head back, close your eyes, and feel the stone cooling your spine. A merchant's bell rings in the distance. A sandal snaps. A baby hiccups. Athens moves. You don't have to. Oh, not yet. You eventually rise because even timelessness gets stiff knees. The sun is now officially up, casting long shadows with an authority it didn't have earlier. The smell of baking bread has grown richer. Someone nearby is slicing onions, judging by the sudden chorus of eye-rubbing and sighs. You follow a small side path lined with olive trees, each one gnarled like it's keeping secrets. A woman stands beside one, tapping its trunk gently. She murmurs something under her breath, not quite a prayer, not quite a recipe. When she sees you, she smiles without explanation and continues tapping. Maybe the tree did something rude, maybe it's a form of therapy. Either way, you leave her to it. At the edge of the path, you discover a low stone structure, a kind of open room with no roof, and in the center a small circular bed of sand. A young boy sweeps it with a wooden rake, carefully drawing concentric patterns. You've stumbled upon a dream circle. These were private, sacred spaces used for sleep rituals, often associated with temples devoted to Asclepius, god of healing. Supplicants would lie on stone beds overnight, hoping to receive dream messages from the god. Not subtle ones either. Full-on visions of cures, instructions, sometimes even scoldings for not praying enough. Think of it as therapy meets a sleepover with divine expectations. The boy nods at you. You nod back. There's no speaking here. Only the rustle of sand and the hush of waiting. Now here's a weird cultural tidbit. In some sanctuaries, people were asked to fast for a full day before sleeping in the temple. The idea was that hunger made the dreams more vivid. One scribe wrote that he dreamt of a goat offering him wisdom in the form of soup. Another dreamed he turned into a fig tree. Neither recovered fully. You sit beside the dream circle for a while. It's cool here and very quiet. Even your thoughts start whispering instead of shouting. Eventually, the boy finishes his sweeping and gently bows to the center of the circle before stepping away. A woman takes his place, laying herself slowly in the sand. Her eyes close, her arms relax, and the wind, almost on cue, softens. You watch for a moment longer, then stand. As you step back onto the road, the light shifts again. It's late morning now. The philosophers have moved out from under the porticos and into the sun, squinting and arguing about concepts that even they half understand. A man with no sandals is loudly claiming that sleep is a form of cowardice. He looks tired. You're walking with the knowledge of sleep still clinging to you like dew. Not quite awake, not quite elsewheres. You pass another rooftop and see a family finishing their morning meal up there: goat cheese, olives, bread. A father yawns mid-bite. A mother pours water from a clay jug with practiced grace. A girl lies on her side, eyes open but unfocused, already drifting back toward dreams. Her hand traces lazy circles on the mat beside her. You walk on, your pace unhurried. You don't need a direction now. You've already learned the secret. That Athens in its golden age did not rush the night. It welcomed it roofless, rested in it without apology. Dreamed in it with both eyes half opens. And now you carry that rhythm tucked quietly inside you. No, not history, just memory, just breath, just sleepwalking. By now, the city has fully unfolded, no longer yawning, but moving, stretching, existing in that peculiar rhythm of ancient life. Measured, slightly chaotic, and completely unbothered by your concept of time. You've wandered further than you meant to. Not far, just enough to make the sun feel a little stronger on your back and your shadow a little bolder on the road. But you're not lost. Athens is not a place you get lost in. It's a place you drift through, like a dream that keeps adding rooms. You come to a modest square lined with shops. One sells herbs, another sandals in sizes that don't seem to correspond with real feet. A man is selling figs next to a man who is selling small birds, and each claims theirs is more useful. The bird seller wins the argument by simply releasing one. It soars off over the rooftops like a smug thought. The fig seller shrugs and eats a fig. You sit at the edge of a stone fountain again. It's the same shape and style as the last one, but this one burbles a bit more confidently. You suspect it's newer. A dog lies belly up in its shade, perfectly content to be ignored. From where you sit, you can hear a teacher giving a lesson to a few boys seated cross-legged in the dust. He's explaining Homer, again, judging by the sigh in his voice. His students listen with that particular brand of attention that involves staring directly at someone while thinking about cheese. He recites a line from the Odyssey. Night came on, darkening earth and sky, and we slept beside the murmuring sea. He pauses for effect. The boys do not murmur. One scratches his leg, another eats a grape without permission. Still, it's a good line. Sleep beside the sea. That's what Odysseus did. That's what you did in your own way. The city was your ocean, the stars your sail. Here's your historical nugget. In Homeric times, long before classical Athens, it was considered natural, admirable, even for travelers to sleep in the open. Hospitality laws required that strangers be welcomed, fed, and given a place to rest. Often that meant laying out a blanket near the hearth or beneath the open sky. No questions asked. Unless you were obviously cursed, in which case limited seating. And here's today's weird cultural footnote. Some households kept a small clay statue called a beside their mats. These little figurines, wide-eyed, with disproportionately large feet, were thought to carry away your worries while you slept. Not all families could afford one, so children would draw them in the dirt beside their beds instead. You like that. A child's sketch in the dust, believed to guard their dreams. It feels ancient, but also completely modern. You lie back again, not to sleep, just to rest. The sky above is paler now, but still vast. Your eyes close. You don't mean to close them, but they do. A soft breeze kisses your cheek. A fig falls from somewhere, hits the ground like a punctuation mark. You think, this is how all the best days end, quietly, with fruit and dust and a sentence half finished. And in that unfinished moment, you almost drift. Not quite asleep, not quite awake, but comfortably in between. You open your eyes again just in time to see a feather floating down. No bird in sight. Just the feather, slow and aimless, landing softly beside you like a question no one asked. The square has changed while your eyes were closed. Not dramatically, just shifted, like furniture moved subtly while you blinked. More people now, more noise, a man hawking honey cakes. A woman loudly accusing a goat of theft. The goat remains stoic. You rise, brushing a thin layer of stone dust from your tunic. It leaves a pattern on your hands, lines and curves like ancient writing. You briefly wonder if you've invented a forgotten language. You haven't, but it's a nice thought. You head toward a quieter lane, one lined with cypress and almond trees. This part of Athens is older, or maybe it just remembers more. The stones underfoot are smoother here, not from design but from centuries of footsteps choosing the same route. You pause at a doorway where an old man is asleep in the shade. His chair creaks gently beneath him as if trying to keep him company. A cup of water sits untouched at his side. You don't wake him. You never wake sleepers in this city. It's practically a law. Down the path, a small group of women gather around a low table. They're mixing herbs into clay, shaping small discs, dream tablets, they're called. Placed under pillows or hung above beds, they're supposed to invite peaceful visions. Some are etched with stars, some with owls, one with what looks like an angry onion. Symbolism was personal. Here's today's historical truth. Sleep and dreams weren't just nightly activities in ancient Greece. They were studied, interpreted, categorized. Aristotle believed dreams were extensions of waking thoughts. Hippocrates thought dreams could diagnose illness. One physician even claimed that a dream about drowning meant your spleen was too warm. Scholars still debate whether that last one was medical insight or metaphorical performance art. And your obscure tradition of the day. Some families sprinkled crushed laurel leaves beneath their children's beds to ward off nightmares. If a nightmare did happen, the laurel would be burned at sunrise, its smoke believed to confuse whatever spirit had wandered too close. You wonder how many dreams were lost in that smoke, how many tiny stories evaporated into morning without anyone to remember them. You sit again on a step beside a vine-covered wall. You don't even realize you've sat until your knees thank you. A breeze carries the scent of pressed olives and wet clay. Somewhere, someone is playing a flute badly but enthusiastically. You let the music carry you for a while, the notes like driftwood on a wide river. You feel your breath slow, your eyes close. The world continues around you, but kindly at a volume you can ignore. So sleep doesn't grab you here. It doesn't chase or demand. It just arrives. Like a guest. Quiet, barefoot, respectful. You won't sleep here, not yet, but you could, and that's the magic. Though that sleep is never far. That in this city, under this sun, sleep walks beside you like a friend who doesn't ask questions. And the stars, they're just waiting for their turn again. They always do. It's late afternoon now, the golden part of the day where even the sun seems to sigh. Its light drapes everything in a kind of soft tiredness, as if the entire city has just remembered something it meant to do but no longer feels like doing. You stand again slowly like someone returning from a thought. Your joints hum, not in protest exactly, more like mild sarcasm. You stretch your arms overhead and hear the telltale crack of a spine that hasn't sat properly since before breakfast. The Greeks had no chiropractors. They had posture, woven mats, and a deeply philosophical relationship with back pain. You walk back toward the edge of the agora where the noise has softened. The busiest part of the day is over. The philosophers have wandered off, possibly to nap. The merchants have started packing up their goods, tying cloth over baskets and counting coins with the precision of poets who turned to retail. A group of children runs past you, giggling and barefoot, chasing nothing. Their feet slap the stones like punctuation marks in a sentence you've forgotten how to read. One of them is carrying a stick with a string tied to it. The string drags a small clay beetle behind him. You can't tell if it's a toy, a ritual object, or a very confused insect. You pause near a shaded portico and sit once more, this time without ceremony. It's cooler here. The columns cast long, confident shadows. Above you, a pigeon flutters lazily onto a ledge, surveys the scene like a disinterested landlord, and coos once, as if to say, "You again." As a man nearby leans against the wall, eyes closed, humming something you don't recognize. He's not asleep, not yet. But he's halfway there, balanced on the edge of that sweet pre-sleep stillness where the world begins to blur and all your thoughts lose their sharp corners. You let your own mind wander, drifting with the breeze. You remember the woman tapping the olive tree, the dreams circle in the temple sand, the garlic tucked under a child's pillow. So many soft rituals, small gestures that whispered to the night, "Be kind to us, we're only here for a little while." Here's your historical moment. The Greeks didn't separate body and spirit the way modern medicine often does. Sleep wasn't just for rest, it was communion with the gods, with the self, with the mystery of the world. Dreams weren't random. They were maps, warnings, answers, or occasionally just reminders to stop eating olives before bed. And here's your obscure curiosity. There were public sleeping festivals. Yes, really, where entire communities would gather in temple courtyards and sleep overnight together, waiting for visions. They called it a sacred shared dreaming. It was believed that group sleep invited divine attention more than individual pleas, kind of like spiritual crowdfunding. The man beside you hums a little louder, then quiets again. A child somewhere has started a song with no lyrics, just a tuneless loop of joy. It drifts through the square like a lullaby that forgot it was supposed to end. Your body grows heavier, not from exhaustion but from belonging, from being here, from having nowhere else to be. And you think just for a second, maybe this is what civilization really meant. Not the buildings, not the politics, but the ability to sleep safely outside, under the open sky, and dream without fear. The light continues to soften, curling around corners, sliding down walls, puddling in doorways. It's the hour where conversations grow quieter, movements slower, and shadows longer than they need to be. You rise one more time, your legs remembering the rhythm before your mind does. You follow the gentle slope of the road back toward the edge of the city, where stone gives way to soil and trees replace statues. This path is less traveled now. Dustier, quieter, it smells of lavender and old sunlight. You pass a woman arranging herbs in small bundles. She's talking to herself or perhaps to the herbs. Either way, they seem to understand. She glances up, sees you, and gestures toward a small pile of mint. You take a sprig and thank her with a nod. She smiles, then returns to whispering to the rosemary. You walk with the mint in your hand, twirling it between your fingers. Its scent lifts your senses slightly, a green sharpness in an otherwise buttery evening. The Greeks believed mint warded off bad dreams, but also bad manners. If you dreamed of mint, it meant your conscience was trying to get a word in. If you smelled mint while awake, well, that was just lovely. Then further along, you spot another familiar sight, a rooftop family preparing for nightfall. The father lays out sleeping mats. The children toss tiny pebbles at each other, not maliciously, just as a reminder of their existence. A cat circles the perimeter, clearly in charge. You find a quiet spot near the edge of a low hill. Not the same one you started from, but it might as well be. The grass here is patchy. The earth warm, you sit, then lie back, the sky above a soft, deepening blue. The first star appears again just as it did last night. Same place, same light. A different you. Here's today's debated truth. Some scholars believe Greek homes had upper sleeping platforms made entirely for seasonal outdoor rest, essentially open-air bedrooms above the actual bedrooms. Others argue this was exaggerated by later Roman writers trying to romanticize their neighbors. The evidence, as always, is partial, like a half-burnt letter, or a dream you only remember pieces of. And here's a final curious detail. Sleep was considered sacred enough to be depicted in funerary art. Tombs often showed the dead in a reclining pose as if mid-nap, not suffering, not triumphant, just resting. As though the ultimate goal of life was not glory or conquest but to sleep well, preferably outdoors with the stars. While you exhale deeply, though the sun dips behind the Acropolis, though the breeze returns, and the world once again begins to hush. You know now what you didn't know this mornings. Though that Athens isn't a city that wakes up. Oh, it's a city that gently shifts between light and sleep, memory and myth, dust and dreaming. You feel it now in your skin, in your bones, in the part of your mind that no longer cares what time it is. And when your eyes close again, not fully, not finally, just softly, it's not to escape the world, but to rejoin it. Well, the version of it that sleeps. Without walls. Dusk arrives in layers. First, a hush settles over the city. Not silence. Athens doesn't really do silence, but a kind of softened version of itself. Conversations become murmur. Footsteps become shuffle. Even the birds, once gossipy and frantic, now sound like they're tucking themselves in mid-sentence. You lie back on your hillside perch, arms folded behind your head, the sky above slowly steeping itself into twilight. The blue deepens, the shadows thicken, and the city begins its slow, ancient ritual of unwinding. From where you are, you can just make out the rooftops below. Families are gathering bowls of lentils, strips of bread, small cups of diluted wine, nothing elaborate, just enough. One boy argues that he should be allowed to sleep with his shoes on in case of dreams involving running. His mother replies that dreams don't require proper footwear. The discussion ends, like so many in Athens, with a shrug and a compromise involving socks. An older couple sits on a rooftop one level down, they say nothing. She untangles a mat while he fans the air slowly with a palm leaf. Their movements are in sync not from choreography but from decades of repetition. They prepare the space not just to rest but to be present, to let the sky do the talking for a while. Your eyes catch something overhead, a thin trail of smoke curling into the darkening air, not from firewood, from incense. A neighbor a few rooftops over is lighting a small dish filled with crushed myrrh. The scent drifts, soft and sweet and slightly spicy, weaving through the olive trees and into your lungs. It smells like memory, or at least like something meant to linger. Now here's your historical anchor. In certain city districts, especially near temples or public altars, it was customary to burn incense at sunset, not only to honor the gods but to calm the senses. The Greeks didn't separate the sacred from the sensory. Smells, sounds, textures, they all belonged to the same ceremony. They were tools for tuning the human spirit to the rhythms of the universe. And now, today's curious fragment. Archaeologists have unearthed small stone basins filled with dried rose petals and feather remains placed on rooftops like offerings. No clear records explain their use. Some theorize they were meant to attract peaceful dreams. Others believe they were gifts to Hypnos himself, the god of sleep, or possibly just the work of bored children with access to birds and flowers. Historians, predictably, still debate it. The stars begin to multiply overhead, faint at first, then clearer, like ancient punctuation marks returning to finish a very long sentence. You feel it again, that slow softening of the world, as if everything, even the stone beneath your back, is exhaling with you. And you think, how strange it is in a city of temples and thinkers and warriors. That the most sacred space might be the quiet spot where you lay down your head. The city has tipped fully into night now. You hear it more than see it. The wind takes on a cooler edge. The hum of insects sharpens. Torches flicker to life one by one across rooftops and alleyways, more for ritual than for light. Athens knows how to be dark without being lost. You sit up slowly, not to leave, just to change your view. The moon has begun its climb, fat and yellow and slightly smug. It illuminates the tops of columns and casts long shadows between rows of sleeping homes. The kind of shadows that seem to watch back. There's a rooftop not far from yours where a group of young men lie sprawled on mats, arguing about the gods with the intensity of people who are too tired to care about being wrong. One insists that Apollo sends his favorite dreams to musicians. Another argues that Hermes plants dreams that feel useful but are ultimately nonsense. The third has fallen asleep mid-sentence and is now drooling onto his elbow. You smile. The stars blink overhead, indifferent but present. You rise and walk a little, barefoot now. The dirt is cool underfoot. There's something grounding about feeling the actual earth beneath you without sandals or thought. It reminds you you're part of this place, not just passing through it. You pass by a small family temple tucked beside a fig tree. There's a candle burning in a clay holder and beside it a folded piece of parchment. You can't read it from here, but you know what it is, a dream request. A simple line, a wish, a question sent skyward, something like, "Let me see her again," or "Give me a sign," or maybe just "Let me rest." Tonight's historical fact: the Greeks kept dream books. Long before or tick dream analysts, these books categorized thousands of dream symbols: falling, flying, losing teeth, swimming in rivers of sheep's milk. Yes, that's one. Entire careers were built on interpreting these signs. Dream interpreters were consulted before battles, marriages, business ventures, and sometimes before dinner. Because who wants to buy fish if last night's dream involved drowning? And here's a stranger gem. In one recovered scroll, the dream of sleeping inside a clay pot was believed to mean you would soon receive news from someone far away. Why? No one knows. Possibly a metaphor, possibly a joke, possibly the result of too much wine and a very cramped evening nap. You return to your spot and lie back once more, the stars now a full orchestra. The night has truly arrived. Not loud, not showy, just inevitable. And for a moment, brief, weightless, you feel what they must have felt. All of them, all the thinkers and farmers, all the mothers and merchants, all the children with garlic under their pillows, all the shepherds with dreams full of goats, all the poets asleep beside their own metaphors. All you feel what it meant to sleep under the sky, and believe that sleep was a kind of truth. You pull your blanket up, the wind brushes your face, careful not to wake you. The stars keep watch, while the city breathes. And then just before your eyes close again, you realize you're not observing history anymore. You're inside it. And it is very, very quiet. The midnight is not a moment in ancient Athens. It's a mood. There are no clocks to announce its arrival, no blinking numbers, no glowing digits on nightstands. Instead, you feel it in your bones. In the stillness that grows thicker, the shadows that stop pretending to be anything else. In the hush that settles over rooftops, deeper than sleep, wider than silence. You wake briefly, not startled, not summoned, just eased upward by a breeze that's grown more confident. It runs its cool fingers through your hair, pulls gently at your blanket, and moves on. You shift slightly, your mat rustling like dry leaves. You're not awake in the usual sense, you're just between things. The sky above you is full and dark and endlessly stitched with stars. Not bright, not boastful, just there, as dependable as breath. You watch them half-lidded, not trying to understand anything. That's the gift of midnight. Curiosity becomes optional. Below, the city is draped in sleep. The agora is empty now, no sandals, no shouting, no liars attempting political satire. Just abandoned baskets, shuttered stalls, and the occasional cat patrolling with exaggerated authority. But not everyone sleeps. You hear it now, the faint chanting, low and steady, coming from a distant rooftop temple. A few acolytes in white linen, heads bowed, moving in slow, synchronized steps. Their voices are soft, rhythmic, not performance, not plea, just presence. You close your eyes and listen. Here's your historical thread. Certain Greek cults believed the deepest part of night was the most spiritually transparent. When the world quieted, they said, the veil between mortal and divine thinned. This is when dreams meant the most, when gods were most inclined to whisper, or watch, or if you were lucky, answer. Some sects even scheduled prayers for this hour, not just for asking favors but for preparing the body for sleep, ritual stretching, breathing, oiling the temples with lavender or myrrh. A holistic surrender. A nightly rehearsal of death in the softest possible form. And here's a curious detail carved into a temple wall near. A small child pictured asleep on a lion back, no explanation, no inscription. Scholars argue, some say it symbolizes courage, others say divine trust. One suggests it's just the artist showing off, but the image lingers in the mind. Vulnerability resting on danger. Asleep anyway. As a coolness brushes your cheek again, you curl slightly, draw the blanket to your chin and let your limbs go slack. Not limp, not lifeless, just given over. As around you the air thickens with possibility. Not action, not movement, just the quiet assurance that dreams are coming. Not all at once, but enough. Though the sky turns imperceptibly, though the stars remain, and sleep once again takes your hand. You don't know how much time has passed. You wake again, just barely, still tucked into your hillside mat, the world around you barely changed. Except it has changed. The wind is quieter now, almost shy. The moon, once bold and showy, is beginning its slow descent, casting a longer, lazier light across the rooftops. Even the stars seem gentler, like they're tiptoeing out of your peripheral vision. Your breath is slower, you can feel it, like waves pulling back from shore. Like the city itself has chosen to breathe in sync with you, you blink once, slowly, and then not again for a while. The dreams, when they come, do not arrive in story form. They arrive like old clothes, familiar, soft, ill-fitting in a way that feels right. You dream of stairs that led nowhere, of olive trees growing indoors, of Athena whispering your name, then laughing and saying she meant someone else. You dream of being a scroll read aloud by firelight, your words flickering and fading before the end. You dream of home, but it's never the same place twice. And then, as dreams do, it all slips away. You open your eyes again just slightly. The sky is a darker blue now, nearing the edge of black, but not cold. There's a warmth to it, like it remembers being sunlight. Somewhere not far, a rooster stirs, not a crow yet, just a shuffle, a cough, the first prelude of morning, but the city doesn't respond, not yet. Now here's something you didn't know you needed. In certain rural parts of ancient Greece, some families left out bowls of milk or honey at night, not for gods, not for animals, but for dreams. They believed dreams would drink, linger, and become in the mind. It wasn't religion, it was hospitality. And here's your scholarly uncertainty of the night. An unfinished scroll found near Delphi mentions something called, scholars still debate what it was. Some say a sacred sleeping chamber, others insist it was a specific type of oil used to rub the feet before bed. One bold theorist claims it referred to the state between waking and dreaming, a word with no modern equivalent. Whatever the truth, no one's finished the scroll. The last line simply reads, "And then we lay back and the sky opened its." Oh, it ends there. You think about that line as you lie here, the stars still above you, the stone still beneath you. The city still humming faintly like a lullaby on repeat. And in that half-thought, that half-dream, you realize something quietly enormous. That the Greeks, so concerned with logic, war, democracy, still chose to sleep outdoors. So still laid themselves under a vulnerable, infinite sky. So still risked dreams in the open air. Maybe they knew something we've forgotten. Maybe they believed that starlight, cool, impartial, and uncontained, was a better ceiling than anything man could build. Well, you turn to your side. The rock under your shoulder is still there. Your loyal nighttime companions. He doesn't say much, but you're glad he stayed. The night continues, and you do not fight it. So you let it wash over you again and again and again. Like waves on marbles. Like a dreams written in dust. Like sleep speaking its first language. The night is at its softest now, not darkest. That came earlier. No, this is the hour after the dark. The hour when even shadows lie down to rest, when everything has stopped trying. You wake again, not fully, just a slow blink into the world. Your mat is still beneath you, still shaped faintly to your body. Your blanket, slightly shifted, has slid just enough to reveal one ankle to the breeze. The air is cooler now, touched with dew, scented faintly of clay, mint, and something you can't quite name. Maybe time, maybe yesterday. Around you, the rooftops are hushed. Not just quiet, hushed. Like a city holding its breath. One man down the slope snores, a thin whistle through his nose. A woman across the alley stirs, adjusting a sleeping child tucked under her arm like a loaf of bread she refuses to drop. And above it all, the stars remain dimmed slightly, yes, but still watching. Their light has grown softer, less certain. As if they too are beginning to forget their lines. The moon is slipping down behind the hills, leaving a trail of faint silver across the edge of your vision. The horizon begins to bruise, not yet gold, but hinting. A promise forming in the east. You sit up, but slowly. There's no rush, no task, no crowd, just the quiet unfolding of time. Here's a piece of history that rarely gets mentioned. In some Athenian homes, children were taught to rise in the last hour of the night and offer a single line of gratitude to the stars. Not to the gods, those had their own rituals, but to the stars themselves. "Thank you for watching," they'd whisper, then lie back down. A ritual not written in law, not prescribed by priests, just passed down in silence, mother to child, sibling to sibling. A ritual of tenderness. And here's your oddity of the night. One preserved clay tablet from the outskirts of Thebes shows a child's scrawl, a crude drawing of a sleeping figure, a sky full of dots, and a caption scratched in underneath. "These are my friends." No name, no date, just that, "These are my friends." Scholars debated whether it was religious, literary, or simply lonely. But the image remains, and something about it still feels true. You lie back again not because you must, but because the earth is still warm. The city is still sleeping, and the stars haven't yet said goodbye. As in the space between breath and thought, you feel something shift, not in the world but in you. As a kind of knowing that you're not alone. That every mat, every rooftop, every child under a blanket of olive leaves is part of this same quiet choreography. No one told the city to rest this way. Oh, it just does. Because the stars never demanded temples. Only a trust. And in this hour, you offer it freely. Time begins to drip again, you can feel it. The way cold water leaks from a stone basin after midnight. Not rushing, not waking, just remembering how to move. The rooftops are still quiet, but not fully still anymore. A foot twitches here. A dog grumbles in its sleep. Someone nearby coughs, a dry, polite cough as though trying not to disturb the architecture. You turn your face toward the east. It's begun, the faintest pale blue has crept into the horizon. That pre-dawn shade, the color of forgotten paper, it glows not with light but with suggestion. Your body hums not with energy, with peace. A peace you didn't ask for but which has arrived anyway, draped in silence and old starlight. Your fingers trace the edge of the mat. Your shoulder presses into the stone. Even the rock feels softer now. Here's today's quiet fact. The Greeks had no alarms, no roosters set to snooze. They rose with the light or with the rustle of other humans doing the same. And before they moved, before the body was permitted to stand, many whispered a private greeting to Eos, the goddess of dawn, not grand, not rehearsed, just a small phrase like, "Thank you for coming back," or "Let me be soft today." You say it now in your head, unsure if it's ritual or memory. You sit up again and stretch, this time with arms fully extended, spine arched, the kind of stretch that belongs only to early mornings and very old cats. A few other figures are moving too, some folding blankets, others rubbing their eyes with the heel of their hands. A man nearby pulls on a tunic backwards, realizes size, fixes it. A girl sings softly under her breath, her tune carrying like a thread in the still air. And now your curious cultural detail. During festivals like it was considered honorable to rise before the sun and bathe in silence. Not in a public bath, those were noisy, but in private, with clay pots of cold water poured slowly over the head. It was believed that pre-dawn water carried memories, that if you stood still enough, the gods might whisper last night's dream back to you. You wish you had water, but instead you lift your arms again and let the breeze brush against your skin like a passing ghost. It's enough, for now. The light continues to rise. The stars begin to fade, not all at once, but like a song ending one note at a time. You look around and realize, though this city never turned off, it only turned down. As Athens is waking now, not with alarms or horns or urgency, but with breath. With sandals tapping gently on stone. With quiet greetings between neighbors who just shared a sky. And you feel lucky. No, not because you witnessed it, but because you were part of it. So sleep isn't over, not entirely. So some still lie beneath their blankets unmoved. So some drift between dreams and daylight like leaves on slow water. But for you, the day has begun. So softly, without rush, without regret. And the stars, so they're gone, but they left the memory of watching. And so the light returns, not as a shock, not like a switch being flipped, but like water rising steadily into a bowl. It slides across the rooftops, soft and golden, slipping over clay tiles and fig leaves, settling into the cracks of the ancient stones like it remembers where everything is supposed to go. You sit up fully now, not because the day demands it, but because your body has arrived at that strange but sacred middle place, no longer resting, not quite active. It's the moment before motion. The moment when the world is not waiting on you but simply existing near you. Below your hill, the first sounds of life are blooming. A bucket tips into a well with a hollow splash. A broom begins sweeping a courtyard in wide, forgiving circles. A pot clinks against stone, then settles into the rhythm of morning cooking. You look down at your hands, they are dusty, creased with sleep, blessed by dirt and dreams. You rub them together gently and wonder not for the first time how many other hands like yours once greeted mornings like this, on hills like this, with thoughts like yours or none at all. And now a quiet piece of history. Athenians often rose early not for obligation but because dawn was considered the most balanced hour of the day. Before politics, before trade, before philosophy. It was a time for bathing, stretching, murmured prayers, or if you were fortunate, doing absolutely nothing. The sun itself, they believed, was gentler in that first hour, still polite, not yet burdened with the weight of its own light. You pull your blanket around your shoulders and stand. The mat, now cool and rumpled, lies behind you like a dream you might fold and carry. You do not rush. No one does not yet. You begin walking, not down into the city, not up toward the temples, but sideways. Along the narrow, familiar that separates wild olive groves from rooftop clusters. The path curves like a lazy thought, uneven and sun-baked, flanked by thorny brush and the occasional sleeping chicken. And just as you round a bend, you catch a glimpse of something. A boy and his grandmother kneeling at the edge of their roof, hands clasped, eyes closed, facing the rising sun. They say nothing. They just stay, breathing, accepting, being. They are not famous, they will never appear in any historical record, but you feel certain they are part of history, of the slow, unshouting kind, the kind that keeps cities alive when no one's looking. And here's your curious detail. In some homes, a small vessel of dew collected at dawn was sprinkled across the entrance steps. It was believed to wake the house, to signal the return of souls from the dream world, and to thank the stone for holding the night's weight. Not every house did it, but those who did swore the air inside felt kinder. You pause, you bow slightly to the wind, a gesture you don't understand but which feels earned. And then you keep walking. The path continues, still curving, still rising until finally, you stop. You look back over the city. Over the rooftops, the courtyards, the slow-moving lives. And you think, how strange, how beautiful. That a civilization could build so much. Conquer, argue, invent, and still choose to sleep outside. Not out of poverty, but out of reverences. For air, for space, for stars, and for the ancient, invisible truth that, to be held by the sky while you sleep, it is the beginning of knowing peace. The sun lifts now, not fast, but with that quiet assurance only old things have. The color shifts from the faded silver of dawn to the full-bodied gold of early day. Shadows retreat behind chimneys. Bees begin their first uncertain loops over wild fennel and crumbled mortar. As Athens is awake, or rather, Athens is walking around with its eyes half open looking for bread. You descend the hill slowly, your feet remembering the path like it's been memorized in dreams. The stones are warm already. Somewhere an amphora cracks, somewhere else water boils over. The day is arriving in pieces, each one the size of a small, harmless interruption. You pass a neighbor you've never spoken to, an older man with wild eyebrows and a slightly lopsided tunic. He's carrying a basket of olives and humming the same 3 notes over and over. You nod. He nods. That is the entire exchange. No one needs more. Near the agora, the city has begun dressing itself in its daily clothes. Vendors drag baskets into stalls. A donkey refuses to move. A group of children argues about who saw the first cloud shaped like a spear. The winner is inconclusive. You step around puddles left by someone overenthusiastic with their sweeping. You smell early cheese, fresh bread, and something being fried that you don't recognize but would happily eat. The chaos hasn't started yet. The noise is still warming up. Here's your historical anchor for the morning. Ancient Athenians treated morning not as a rush, but as a ramp. There were hours before business opened, before courts assembled, before debates ignited. These were sacred hours for letting the body become solid again after a night of being something else. And here's today's strange cultural relic. One philosopher, name lost to time, insisted on whispering, "Remember you are heavier now," to himself each morning. He claimed sleep made him lighter, more spirit than man, and waking was a slow return to weight. His students thought him eccentric. He died peacefully under a fig tree at the age of 91, still muttering to the wind. You make your way toward a shaded stoop. Not to sit, just to pause. Your shoulders are loose, your breath is deep. You've slept, yes, but more importantly, you've slept right, under the stars, with no barrier between you and the sky. You feel the difference in your bones, your skin, your voice before you've even used it. And as you look back one last time at the rooftop where you lay, you notice it has already changed. The mat has been folded. The blanket aired. Someone is sweeping the dust. The night has been tucked away. But something lingers. No, not scent, not heat. Not just the shape of sleep. Are still present. Are still echoing faintly on the stone. You carries that echo with you. Into the day. Into the crowd. Into the long, loud future. Because here, in this moment, in this city that builds temples and bakes bread and argues in iambic pentameter, you remember the simplest truth of all. That sometimes the most powerful thing a person can do is lie under the stars and trust the sky not to fall. The sun is fully risen now, round and declarative, perched in the sky like it owns the place. Its light spills down the sides of columns, washes over temple stairs, seeps between shutters with theatrical ease. Athens, now awake in the fullest sense, is humming with purpose. And yet something remains from the night. You feel it in the way people move. No, not rushed. No, not frenzied. Just intentional. As a woman balances a jar of oil on her head and walks with the calm grace of someone who knows she's being watched by the gods and doesn't mind. A boy scrubs stone steps with one foot while chewing on a plum. A baker slaps dough onto a clay slab, nodding in time with the rhythm of birdsong. You walk among them now, wrapped loosely in your tunic, the dust of the path clinging faintly to your ankles. No one remarks on your sleep outdoors. Why would they? This is a city where the stars were always welcome. You pass a home where a man is airing out sleeping mats on the roof. He does so slowly, almost tenderly, as if folding the dreams back into the linen for safe keeping. He doesn't notice you watching, but he hums a tune you remember from somewhere, maybe a temple, maybe your own memory inventing itself as you walk. Here's today's historical seed. Sleep in ancient Athens was never confined to the domestic. Unlike modern expectations of privacy and darkness, rest was porous, blended with ritual, with nature, with architecture. Courtyards, rooftops, porticos, even the steps of theaters became resting places at the edges of the day. A good city, they believed, allowed for spontaneous sleep. Just as it allowed for sudden debate or surprise music, or quietly peeling an orange while watching someone else argue about metaphysics. And now for something less expected. A recently uncovered wall fragment in Piraeus depicts what appears to be a rooftop picnic, figs, cheese, rolled mats, and a tiny sketch of a lyre beside a sleeping couple. Below it is etched a phrase, "Let sleep find you wherever the sky approves." Scholars argue whether this was poetry, prophecy, or graffiti. But either way, the sentiment has held. You stop to rest beneath the awning of a public building, just a moment of shade. Around you, the sounds of the day swell. Wheels on stone, merchants announcing grapes that are more honest than your brother. Sandals slapping in mismatched cadence. Someone in the distance yelling at a goat that frankly seems unbothered. And yet, under all that, softness. Like the city hasn't fully let go of the night. Like there's still stardust tucked under its nails. You feel it in your bones, in your lungs, in the part of your mind that still wants to lie down again and see what the next dream holds. You don't, of course, not yet, but you hold the idea gently. Because here, in this city of light and rhetoric, the sleep is not a pause. It is a thread, woven into everything. Even now, by midday, Athens gleams. Not in a loud, polished way, no glittering towers or mirrored buildings, but in a lived-in, golden sort of way. The sun sticks to the sides of amphorae, dances along the edges of togas, and makes every surface too warm to touch for long. Heat rises visibly in waves from the streets. Shade becomes currency. You walk with slower steps now, not because you're tired, but because the day demands it. Athens under the midday sun is not a place for hurrying. It's a place for lining, squinting, fanning yourself with woven reeds, and briefly questioning the necessity of consciousness. You pass a columned hall where two men are mid-argument about whether dreams come from the heart or the liver. One points at his own chest dramatically. The other, equally passionately, gestures toward his waist. A third man nearby offers the opinion that both are wrong and that dreams come from bad lentils. He is ignored. You move past them down a side alley where the shadows are narrower but denser. The heat presses against your back like a friendly giant. You stop near a well and dip your hands into the basin, not to drink, just to touch something cooler than yourself. The water smells of minerals and memory. Here's a bit of historical texture. Midday in ancient Athens was often marked by an informal pause. Not a legal break, not everyone stopped, but many did. Artisans set down tools, markets slowed, some shops even closed shutters briefly. It wasn't called a nap, it didn't need a name, it was simply part of the cycle. A slow inhale before the rest of the day exhaled. And yes, many people used this hour to sleep. Not always fully, not long, but enough. A rooftop mat, a shaded bench, a sliver of temple wall with a breeze. Athens knew that sleep wasn't a destination. It was an ingredient. Necessary in small doses, scattered across the hours like salt on bread. You continue walking and see it for yourself. A man reclining in the crook of a tree near the agora, hat pulled over his eyes. A boy curled beside his mother on a shaded porch, both breathing in unison. A shopkeeper nodding off behind a stall of pottery, head tilted, a fly buzzing near his cheek and being politely ignored. It doesn't feel lazy. It doesn't feel indulgent. It feels natural. Like the sun and sleep had agreed long ago to share the day. And here's today's curious cultural ritual. On the island of Delos, families would sometimes gather in silence for a midday rest under one roof, even if none of them slept. They called it sun listening, just lying quietly, eyes closed, breathing in the light. Not to nap, not to dream, just to feel what the sun had to say. You stop under a fig tree now, its branches drooping like it's leaning in to listen too. You press your back to its trunk, let the shade wrap around your shoulders and close your eyes, not for long, just long enough. Long enough to remember the stars. Long enough to let the day pass through you instead of over you. Long enough to rest even while standing. Because even in the full blaze of noon, Athens never forgets that sleep is sacred. And neither do you. By afternoon, the city has taken a breath. Not because it's tired, though it is, but because it knows what's coming. The sun has passed its highest point and begun its slow descent. The light tilts. The air thickens with the scent of cooling stone, fruit skins, old wood, and the faint trace of dried sweat under fresh linen. You've returned to walking, though it's less walking now, more drifting. Your path is dictated by shade, by sound, by instinct. You follow a row of rooftops like stepping stones in the air, your eyes scanning the places where people lean, sit, or stretch. A young girl kneels in the dust beside her grandmother, weaving a braid of reeds. They don't speak. They don't need to. The rhythm of hands, the swish of leaves, and the scratch of reed against reed says enough. The further on, you pass a mural half-faded on the side of a home. A painted Hypnos, god of sleep, depicted not as a reclining figure, but as a boy walking backward into the stars, arms open. Beneath the image, barely visible, a phrase in curling letters: "Return to him gently and he will show you the way again." Was it a prayer, a proverb, a warning? Historians still argue about its origin, but in this light it just feels like permission. You sit on the edge of a cistern now, legs dangling. The stone is warm under you. It hums faintly with stored sun. A merchant walks by with a tray of honey cakes. You don't buy one, but you enjoy the smell as he passes. That's allowed here. Everything is shared in some way, even sweetness. And here's your afternoon historical moment. In some households, particularly those with older family members or young children, a second resting period took place in the late afternoon. Not a full sleep, just a draping of the body over a mat or bench. A pause, sometimes with eyes closed, sometimes while snapping green beans or shelling peas. It wasn't called anything, it just was. The Greeks didn't demand that sleep explain itself. It could come in pieces. It could arrive without an invitation and leave without apology. There was no shame in it. There was no competition in rest. You either needed it or you didn't, and if you did, it would wait for you. Now for a more obscure tradition. In the village of On the Edge of Attica, it's recorded that older citizens would walk slowly through olive groves during late afternoon, reciting half-dreams aloud to trees. They believed the trees remembered what the mind forgot, that if you gave your dreams to the grove, you could retrieve them later like borrowed scrolls. No one knows if the trees answered, but the practice lingered for generations. You rise again, brush dust from your tunic, and walk along a wall lit with sideways sunlight. The heat is different now, more tired, less insistent. The kind of warmth that feels like it's packing up, folding its belongings, checking to make sure nothing has been forgotten. And you think, this is the same sun that once burned the backs of warriors. The same light that lit the pages of Plato's scrolls. And now it just washes your shoulders and leaves you be. Though the city exhales again, and so do you. Though the shadows stretch long now, thin fingers across walls, slanting through temple colonnades, creeping under rooftops like returning memories. You found a bench under a pomegranate tree, the kind with bark like skin and branches bent under their own fruit. A breeze moves through with purpose, tugging the leaves in one direction, then pausing, perhaps deciding that was enough. So the day is winding down. Not ending, no, Athens doesn't end. It leans, it tilts, it prepares. You're surrounded by small signs of that preparation, doors being unlatched, amphory being shifted inside. Women pulling blankets from lines, folding them without looking. A boy chasing a goat that is very clearly uninterested in being chased. From inside one home comes the clink of cups being arranged for the evening meal. The rhythm is not loud, but it is certain. And the air is changing. It smells of baked earth and crushed mint, of oil lamps being lit and bread crust being torn. The heat has finally relented, its shoulders lowered. The light, too, has grown honey-colored, less sun, more story. So you rest your chin in your hand and watch. Now no one here fears the night. Oh, because the night is not absence. It is arrival. Here's today's historical reflection. The evening for ancient Athenians was not the end of productivity, it was the beginning of thought. With the heat gone and the body fed, minds could wander again. Friends gathered on rooftops not just to sleep but to talk. Lovers met beneath arches. Teachers gave late lessons by lamp glow. Dreams, still hours away, were already being invited in. And here's a delicious bit of lore. It was said that if you spoke the name of a loved one aloud 3 times as the first star appeared, they would dream of you, no matter how far they were. Whether that was magic, coincidence, or poetic suggestion didn't matter, it was believed. And belief in this city holds its own kind of weight. You rise once more and return toward your original hilltop, the same sleeping spot you left this morning, now changed, now waiting. You pass a boy gathering herbs for his mother. He offers you one, a small sprig of thyme crushed between his fingers. It keeps the shadows quiet, he says, not looking up. You thank him, tucking it behind your ear like a keepsake from a dream you haven't had yet. Though the hill greets you with the same quiet grace it always has, your mat is still there. Someone, perhaps a neighbor, has shaken it out and laid it smooth. The blanket folded. A small jug of water rests beside it, still sweating from the clay's coolness. Oh, and as you sit and stretch and sigh, you realize something simple but unshakable. Though this city doesn't go to sleep, it opens itself to it. Like a gate, like a cup, like a child's hand, reaching up to the sky and expecting nothing but stars in return. You lie down. The breeze returns. The last rays of sun touch your toes, then vanish. And as the sky begins to darken once more, as the stars consider whether to show themselves again, you feel yourself sinking, not down but through the world. as if the earth has made space for you, as if the air has remembered your shape, as if night has been waiting for you all along. Twilight in Athens is not a moment. It's a mood, a drift, a hymn in fading colors. You lie back on your mat, body cooling, heart slow, mind soft around the edges. The sky above you, no longer bright, wears a gradient robe of violet and ash and that particular shade of blue that only appears when the world stops trying to be anything. Though the last birds have gone quiet, the cicadas begin their shift, slower now, less urgent. You hear a lyre strum once from down the hill, not a song, just a test of a string. A man clearing his throat, a candle being lit. Though this is when the shadows grow kind. This is when the city begins once more to listen. You turn your head slightly and see the rooftops scattered below you like puzzle pieces gently reshuffled. No one is in a hurry. Mats are being unfurled, cushions plumped, children washed and dried and wrapped like scrolls of flesh and breaths. A woman hums as she oils her husband's back with a clay jar of lavender. Two sisters braid each other's hair beside a chimney. A boy stares at the stars and names them out loud to no one in particular. That one is mine. That one is for the dog. That one looks like an almond. Here's your historical shimmer. This hour was once called by the poet Simonides, loosely translated, the unfastening. Not of sandals, not of garments, but of thoughts. The hour where the day's logic was undone, the bindings of rationality loosened, and the mind could wander again like a goat with no fence. Scholars often overlook this phrase, but it has survived in fragments of poetry, in prayers, in the small mutterings of men who spoke only to the moon. And here's a peculiar custom passed down from the Attic countryside. Some families would place a small piece of bread under the mat before sleeping to feed the dreams. They said, it wasn't eaten. It wasn't meant to be. It was an offering to whatever part of the soul wandered out at night. A crumb left on the windowsill of consciousness just in case the dream got hungry. You feel your own thoughts beginning to unfasten. They don't vanish, they soften, edges round, worries blur. You remember the rock under your shoulder, you don't mind it. You remember the time tucked behind your ear, still fragrant, still keeping the shadows quiet. And above you, yes, there they are. Though the first stars returning. They blink into view like old friends who didn't knock. No procession, no introduction, just we're here. And you think not aloud but deeply. Oh, you did come back. Oh, you always do. Though the breeze shifts, not cold, just new. Though the moon, still low, begins to rise. Oh, and Athens, the ancient aching proud, prepares to hand its pulse to the dark again. Oh, but not with fear, well, with a trust. The light has left now, fully. No scraps of orange on the horizon, no apologetic streaks of gold, just night, full, round, unashamed. And yet you do not feel lost. Oh, because this night is not blankness. Oh, it is memory. Oh, it is full of the things you saw and touched and thought. It is full of footsteps and figs and old stone and warm bread and cool hands. It is full of other nights, other dreams, other lives that once lay here under the same stars, hopping to feel what you feel now. Now you lie very still, not from fatigue but from reverence. The stillness is holy here. You hear a dog shuffle in its sleep nearby. A sandal clinks against a doorway. A low, rhythmic chant begins from the temple of Asclepius, 3 voices in perfect time calling the god of healing to bless the sleepers. Their voices do not rise. They ripple like sound remembering how to move. You don't understand the words. You don't need to. They're not for knowing. They're for following. Here's tonight's historical thread. Some temples offered formal sleep rituals, not prayers before bed but structured processes of letting go. Would lay on stone benches inside sacred chambers, breathe slowly and listen to temple servants recite fragments of myth. Stories not meant to entertain but to lull, to dissolve the self. The belief was that within these stories the gods left signs, not answers necessarily, just presence. And now your obscure oddity, a scrap of papyrus found in the ruins of an old healer's home contained instructions for sleeping through fear. It advised tying a red thread loosely around the ankle and whispering the phrase, "I lend myself to the quiet." It didn't promise safety, just sleep, which for some was enough. You lie on your side now. Your mat beneath you is warm, your blanket folded just so. A bit of your ankle peeks into the air like punctuation. The stars above are clearer, deeper, more confident. Someone nearby starts to snore, soft, even loyal. A woman sighs in her sleep. A baby murmurs. The wind moves one reed against another, like a finger drawing a line in sand. And you are not thinking anymore. You are remembering. You are remembering something that never had a name. What it feels like to be small and safe and seen. What it feels like to trust the world enough to close your eyes inside it. Athens holds its breath and lets it out again. Slowly. And just before you slip into the dark again. You feel the stars lining in. Not to tell you something, but to keep watch. And that is more than enough. Now the night is deep. Not dramatic, not cinematic, just deep. Settled. Warmed from below. Stretched out like a sleeping dog that trusts the world. You lie on your mat, blanketed in nothing but air and quiet. The stars above you are no longer individual points of light. They've blurred into a soft canopy, a gentle, luminous fog. You know their names, or you did, but they don't ask to be named tonight. They ask only to be noticed. Somewhere a piece of pottery clinks against another. A final jug being set down, a family adjusting its sleeping arrangement. You hear a whisper, half a laugh, a sigh, a rustle of straw, a shared blanket. Someone says, "Just sleep now," in a voice so soft you almost think you dreamed it. And now the world holds still. This is the hour the Greeks feared and revered in equal measure. The hour when Hypnos, god of sleep, walked without sandals. The hour when dreams took shape in the corners of your mind, shapeless at first, then vivid, then gone. The hour when everything stops pretending. Now here's your historical anchor in the quiet. The Greeks often referred to the middle of the night as the heart of the night. It wasn't just a time, it was a threshold. The moment when the soul was believed to drift furthest from the body. During dreams were most trusted, visions were most vivid, and sleep was most sacred. Is in sanctuaries dedicated to the god of healing, priests would walk among the sleeping, watching for signs of divine dreams. A twitch of a hand, a murmur, a change in breathing. If a sleeper cried out or smiled, it was noted. The next morning, the dream would be interpreted not with skepticism but with ceremony. And now, your obscure detail for this hour. One rare clay amulet shaped like a closed eye and found buried beneath the floor of a child's room in an Athenian villa bore a single inscription: "Dream, do not leave me early." It's unclear whether it was worn, placed under the mat, or simply buried for protection. But the plea feels familiar. While you shift slightly, your limbs heavy now, not with fatigue, with permission. You are not being asked to do anything. No performances. No task. No brilliances. Only breaths. Only stillnesses. Only sleep. You close your eyes not to block the world but to be welcomed more deeply into it. The line between body and sky grows faint. You cannot tell where the stars end and your thoughts begin. And then somewhere softly, beneath you, within you, beyond you, the ancient earth begins to dream with you. You dream now, not of gods, not of battles, not of speeches echoing through marble halls. You dream of smaller things. You dream of stone warmed by the sun, of olives falling soundlessly into dust, of a city that whispers instead of shouts. Of water poured slowly into a cup, never spilling, always just enough. Your mind floats. You are walking barefoot through a grove, your fingers brushing the undersides of olive leaves. You are carrying a small clay lantern, though there's no need for light. Everything around you glows not with brightness but with belonging. You pass a goat, she nods. You pass a girl sitting on a rock feeding crumbs to a fig tree. The tree says thank you. You reach a well that sings instead of echoes, and beside it Hypnos himself lounging with his head on a folded blanket, eyes closed, smiling faintly. He says nothing. He doesn't need to. You lie beside him. He shifts slightly, making room. And just like that, you awake. Not fully, not sharply, just lift. Your eyes open to darkness and stars, to the weight of your own breaths, to the shape of a city asleep in every direction. It's not morning yet. You know, because the stars are still loud. And still sure of themselves. They're still watching. You turn to your side and nestle deeper into your mat. The blanket follows your movement without complaint. Your hand rests on your chest just over your heart. The rhythm is steady. Your own personal lyre quietly playing. Here's your night fact as the city holds its breath. Ancient Greeks often believed that dreams were a form of wandering, that the soul, when unchained from the body, could move up, out, sideways into the past or the future. This wasn't metaphor. It was known. Your body was a vessel, but your dreams were your wings. And now your strange detail. A handful of ancient sleep charms have been found bearing the phrase, "Let me return." Etched into bronze, whispered into clay, scratched into wood, not fearfully, just carefully. Because when you sleep under stars, anything feels possible, even drifting too far from yourself. You're still here, though you haven't wandered too far. Your back presses into the earth. The stars press into your eyes. And for one last moment before sleep deepens again, you feel held, not by blankets, not by stone, not even by ritual, but by the sky itself. You exhale, and Athens all around you exhales with you. Thousands of bodies, thousands of dreams, all asleep together, all trusting the stars not to fall. The hour before dawns. It arrives without sound. No bells, no birds, no declarations. Only stillness, longer, thicker, older than any silence you've known. A kind of pause so deep you feel it inside your bones, as if your very blood has chosen to rest. You do not know if you're awake, or dreaming, or both. You are on your mat. You are also floating somewhere. You are breathing, but your body is far away, like a note played so softly it's mistaken for wind. Around you, the city is stone and breath, not moving, not speaking, just existing. This is the sacred hour, the true deep. The dreams, if you still carry them, have begun to lose shape, not because they're vanishing, but because they've done what they came to do. The stories have been folded up, the images dimmed. You'll remember a few things, something about a tree that spoke, maybe, or a fish with your father's voice, but most of it will slip into the underlayer of your spirit, the place that does not need translation. You roll gently onto your back, one arm draped lazily over your eyes. The blanket has slipped to your waist. You don't reach for it, you don't need to. The cool air is comforting now. It knows you, you know it. From somewhere down the hill, a dog lifts its head, sniffs the air, and rests again. The fig tree outside your neighbor's rooftop has dropped another fruit, soft, ripe, unsupervised. No one sees it, but the night keeps track of such things. Now your historical whisper, the hour before dawn, was once known in some rural texts as the hour of Hera, not because of grandeur, but because it was believed to be the hour in which vows, spoken or unspoken, returned to the mind. A time of reflection. A time when your soul could weigh what it had promised, what it had broken, and what it still carried. Priests in some mountain villages rose during this hour to listen not to people but to the sky. The stars, one fragment says, have more to say on the way out than they did when they arrived. Whether this was poetic or practical is unclear, but it stayed. That idea, that stars, like people, become honest before leaving. And your obscure practice of the night. A few scattered records describe mothers tying thin cords around their children's wrists before bed, dyed threads, red or green, meant to anchor the dreamers. In the morning, if the child woke with the thread still intact, it was said the soul had returned whole. If the thread was missing, a longer sleep was needed. You lie still now, entirely still. While the city is breathing, while you are breathing, though the stars are watching, though the stars are beginning to say goodbye, as a faint paling of the sky has begun, barely visible, but you feel it, not with your eyes, with your skin. While you are not finished sleeping, but something inside you has begun to return. Time to fold up the dream. Time to gather the threads. Time to rise gently toward the next thing. So the world is beginning again. Not loudly, not suddenly, just beginning. The black of the sky has faded into deep indigo. The stars, those faithful watchers, have started to retreat, like torches being slowly dimmed by a courteous hand. The moon hangs low now, bloated with memory, ready to rest. Your mat is slightly damp from dew. Your blanket smells like stone and time. Your hair is tousled, your legs tangled. You're not quite awake, you're not quite asleep. This, more than any other hour, feels holy. The first rooster calls softly, uncertainly. It doesn't expect a reply, it just marks the moment. One note cast into the morning like a pebble tossed into a still lake. So then another. So then another. And soon Athens begins to hum again, not with chaos, not yet, but with movement. A creak of wood, a jug lifted, a bowl rinsed, the smallest rituals, the sacred sequence of return. You rise onto one elbow, eyes blinking slowly. The horizon glows faintly now, just enough to outline the buildings in delicate gold. You smell smoke, someone lighting a cooking fire. You hear fabric being shaken out, mats being folded, footsteps padding across clay. While you sit up, your spine protests, your shoulders stiff. You stretch, yawn, rub your eyes with the back of your hand like a child unsure whether to wake or cry. And now your final piece of ancient rhythm. For some Athenians, especially elders and poets, this first hour of light was the only one that truly mattered, before the crowds, before the markets, before decisions had to be made. They called it the hour of the open sky, not for what they saw above, but for what the mind still remembered. The place between dreams and day. A passage, not a destination. One well-preserved journal of a teacher records. At the first blush of day, I sit alone, not to think but to still be thinking. There's something beautiful about that. The idea that thought itself can linger like smoke even after the fire of sleep is gone. And here's a final curiosity. The poet once claimed that the best time to write was within 15 breaths of waking. The soul, he said, still dripping with stars, tells the truth more willingly. He died with an unfinished scroll beside his pillow. It was blank, perhaps that was the truth's. You finish folding your blanket. You tuck your mat under your arm. You walk slowly down the hill back into the city that now stirs, not with alarm but with knowing. A child passes you, rubbing his eyes, dragging a wooden toy behind him. A woman greets the sky with a kiss to her palm. A shopkeeper opens his shutters and sighs into the street. And you walk with sleep still clinging to you, not as fatigue but as blessing. While you carry it, in your breath, in your step, in your silences, because you remember what the stars whispered. Not their words, just the feeling. Though that sleep is not absence, it is arrival. Though that rest is not weakness, it is trust. And that the greatest wisdom of all, maybe, is to lie under the sky, with your eyes closed, and believe that the world will keep turning. Without your help, the city is fully awake now, but not loudly, not all at once, or just enough. You've returned to the narrow streets. The market stalls are still mostly closed. Bread is rising, water is heating. A few voices rise in low conversation. The philosophers haven't arrived yet, and the orators are still adjusting their robes. The stage is set, but the play hasn't begun. You move through the morning like someone remembering the words to a song. Your feet trace familiar steps, past the portico where you sat yesterday, past the fig tree with its stubborn fruit, past the small temple to Hypnos where a single bundle of lavender now rests on the doorstep, fresh, still damp with dew. Someone slept well last night. And you think to yourself, not loudly, not with pride, just quietly. So did I. All because you did. Not in a palace, not behind locked doors, but under the sky on a woven mat, wrapped in a night full of stories, dust, dreams, and breath. And in that sleep you remembered something. Something unteachable. Something you can't quite put into words. That safety doesn't always come from walls. That wisdom doesn't always come from scrolls. Though that rest isn't earned, it's offered. You walk through the agora just as the sun begins to strike the uppermost columns, gilding them for a few fleeting minutes with something holy. A man greets you with a nod. A goat you've seen before raises its head, then lowers it again, unimpressed. A child waves, then hides. And there you are, alive, sleep-warmed, sky-kissed. Now you sit for a while on a stone ledge. You don't say much. No one expects you to. Because the city knows. It recognizes the look in your eyes. You're one of the sleepers now, one of the rooftop dreamers. Though the stars may be gone, but you carry them in your breaths. They don't need to be seen to be remembered. And as the day pulls itself forward, as sandals scuff stone and stories are once again spoken aloud, you carry with you the quiet, glittering truth of the night before. Though that in the ancient city of Athens, where minds were sharp and streets were noisy, and everything was always being debated, and people still chose to sleep under the stars, not because they had to, but because they knew what we forget. Though that sleep is sacred, though that rest is a right, and that sometimes being held by the sky, it is the closest thing we have to being free. And now, you've made it all the way through the night. You've walked barefoot through a sleeping city. You've breathed with the rooftops. You've listened to fig trees and starlight and the hush of ancient hands folding blankets in silence. Now there's nothing more to do. No more hills to climb. No more goats to dodge. No more stars to count. Your body's softened. Your mind loosened. Your breath steady. Let the weight of the day melt out of your shoulders. Let your hands fall softly into the sheets. Let your eyelids grow heavier, not because the world demands it, but because the world has given you permission to rest. Though the ancient ones are sleeping now, though the philosophers, though the basket weavers, though the poets, though the olive pickers, are all dreaming beneath the same sky, though the stars have said their part, though the stones have held you, though the wind has passed through you, and now it's your turn. Turn to fall, gently, unresisting, back into sleep. Let your thoughts become dust. Let your breath become olive leaves swaying in the breeze. Let the night hold you not as something to fix or solve or think through, but simply as something to be. You are safe. You are still. You are starlit. And everything else can wait until the sky says otherwise. Sleep well now. You're not alone. Athens is sleeping too. And so, at last, may you be carried into dreams, the way the ancients believed we should be, with nothing above you but sky, and nothing beneath you but peace.